You're most welcome back to Matchbook's weekly US Golf podcast. We're talking all things fifth major this week, the Players' Championship from Sawgrass. Delighted to be joined now live on Tuesday evening on this side of the Atlantic, Tuesday afternoon for these men. Top of the screen, co-host of the For Profit podcast, Mr. James Mazzola, back from sunny Mexico in his humble abode of his office, and director of content with BetSports, Mr. Andy Molitor. Gentlemen, our third podcast last week. The first one we're in profit. It was a good one. I mean, Brendan Steele to beat Robert McIntyre is probably your second strongest one, Andy, because James stole your Sam Burns to beat Billy Horschel one, which was a push, James, a really tough one. Top three shots, Burns on the second, on his second day, coming in at the back nine, and that par five double bogey absolutely killed him. But a Brandon Steele to beat Robert McIntyre, Cameron Tringale to beat Taylor Gooch, Ian Poulter to beat Luke List, Jason Kokrak to beat Tommy Fleetwood. A good week, gentlemen. Solid week. But it's all about this week. It's all about Sawgrass Fifth Major, one of the most famous and celebrated, and look, just an overall run good golf tournament. I want to talk about the outrights first of all, guys. We didn't really do this in the last couple of weeks, but I think it's interesting market here because I think it's pretty much only two players outside the top 50 in the world are playing this week. Incredibly stacked field here. James, come to you first, but let's take a look at the time of recording at Matchbook. 14.0, you can back Dustin Johnson at the top of the field. He's in a couple of matchups this week as well. John Rahm at 18.0, Rory and McIlroy at 19.0. Bryson DeChambeau, fresh from that win last week at the Arnold Palmer at 20.5. 22.0, you can back Colin Morikawa. Justin Thomas, 23.0. Cantley at 23.0. Xander Schauffele at 24.0. 29.0, Webb Simpson at 35 to 1 bar. My goodness, there's a lot of money available on these guys. James Mazzola, top of the field. But one you like is Justin Thomas, 23.0. And just to preface this a bit, James, he's 18.0, 19.0, best in the sports books here across the Atlantic. But you think he's a bit of a bet here?
Yeah, again, another Matchbook kills it again with that number. That's something that I already bet. I bet it at 20 actually over on this side of the Atlantic. It's interesting to note before we even start talking about this, we have to consider the fact that this is only the second time we've seen this tournament in March. Obviously, it got canceled last year because this is where COVID basically changed the world. So here we are a full year later. We have a full field. We even have some fans in this golf course. So that should be exciting. I know it was kind of fun watching the tournament last week with Bryson, hitting the bomb over 6 and you had everyone cheering behind him. But the course play is different, right? Normally a Florida course is all Bermuda. Well, the Bermuda is dormant in the wintertime, and this is, even in the early spring like it is here in Florida. So you're looking at a completely different track. It played a lot softer in 2019 when Rory basically destroyed the field. He is like the soft course king, so that makes sense. And I think we're going to see a lot of the same. So, take your Bermuda grass putting splits out. It's a POA. Like a POA bent mix, which is, kind of an interesting thing. But, when we look at this market, I just think JT is where we're getting a little too ahead of ourselves here, right? So he played poorly. A lot of that had to have been due to the loss of his grandfather. And we talked about this on that podcast. It's been a little while since that now. He took a week off following concession where he gained almost 10 strokes on approach, which is amazing. I mean, and only him and my son, Colin Morikawa, even have the ability on tour to do that right now. Lost 5 strokes with the driver, and that has been his biggest issue, is driving the golf ball. What I'm looking for him, especially this golf course, where if you're a course history buff, you're gonna love JT because he's 5 made cuts, he has a top 5, a top 10, and 2 top 20s. So if he can get that driver in play, he doesn't have to even gain. He just has to not lose strokes with it. He's going to be right there. And at 22 to 1, you're getting the best iron player in the world. So anytime you're going to get the best iron player on a course that requires that, and most courses do, you're going to have to start your card there.
Andy, what are you thinking there? I know it's kind of early in the week for you, maybe playing an outright, but just your general overall thoughts of this field.
Oh, and maybe some of these outrights should be played early in the week because you get a good indication if you are, you're in agreement with the market in general. If it starts to definitely dip down, we've seen a few of those. And James is the king of that, grabbing some early numbers. He's always more prepared than I am as far as grabbing some of those big prices.
In fairness, he's got less sports to cover than you do.
Yeah, it makes a big difference though when you cash an 80 to 1 and everybody else had to bet him at 66. Just stacking pennies at the end of the year. But yeah, it is quite different, and we did see this in the past. Obviously, only got one round last year, but when you have it in March rather than May, they do some overseeding, not only the greens but other parts of the course with the northern grasses, stuff that I'm seeing up here on my courses in my yard. Ryegrass, fescue, the bent grass on the green stuff. They're going to overseed, and it does make it softer. I don't want to say it makes it easier, but it kind of does. It makes it more receptive. It's soft. Like I don't want to say like this is an easy course, but it's going to be like a scoring course now. This might be a 16 to 20 under kind of score, and so you need to find maybe adjust how you're looking at this compared to how you've looked at it 3, 4, 5 years ago. As far as I don't want to. I hate it because I love this tournament, and I hate to like bring it down and compare it to like the Rocket Mortgage or the 3M, but it turns into like a scoring fest that's similar to some of those northern courses you'll see later in the year. So I did have to make some adjustments, and some guys just finding some pure ball strikers, some guys that can find the middle of the fairway, some guys that can find the green and let the putting kind of take care of itself, because these greens are going to be a lot less grainy now that you're not, you did the overseeding. So, I mean, there are some bigger numbers on guys like Zalatoris. Just thinking who I had for like just ball striking guys. Henley, I think there was a decent number on. A guy I backed last week a little, I think Emiliano Grillo. And then, just that JT at that number. It's not often you get to back somebody who's legitimately, top 5 irons when he's playing well at 20 to 1 or better. Like we said, at other tracks, he's going to be in the teens. So I do agree. I mean, everybody in our golf chat kind of saw that on Monday. Like, well, that's a bet, right? JT 20 to 1. That's our bet. In fact, fast forward, best bets. It's an outright this week. It's JT.
There you go. Yeah, just take it away. 6 minutes in. JD, jump back in.
The one thing I want to mention is we are on a TPC course. These is a public golf course. Whenever you hop on TPCs, you're not going to see this insanely undulated greens because they're open to the public. Any 25, 30 handicapper can go out there and play it. So these greens are not super difficult to putt on. And, I think it's a great point, especially without the Bermuda. You're going to see basically true rolls. Bent is the best thing to putt on. And everyone will say that. That's why it's at Augusta. Like, it's the most smooth. There's no grain. There's no bumpy. Like that is the pure grass. So I think it's important. I think that's a great note. I don't know if putting is going to matter as much. And I think we got to lean even more towards the ball strikers in normal weeks.
Yeah. Outright selection is going to be Justin Thomas, 23.0. And you guys touching it there. It seems to be the best of the number, and even better now at Matchbook, we have a brand new sign-up offer. If you sign up at matchbook.com today using the promo code INSIGHTS, because that's what we like to give, insightful information, INSIGHTS, INSIGHTS, matchbook.com, you're going to get 0% commission on all sports. Now, ordinarily, it's 2% net win. It's not much anyway, but it's 0% until the 12th of April. Terms and conditions do apply. As always, please do gamble responsibly. Right, matchups. Let's get into it. Mr. Molitor, going to start with you first. Matthew Nesmith against Cameron Champ. It's probably not one of the marquee matchups on the board, Andy, but hey, we don't care. It's all about finding winners. But why do you like Nesmith here at 1.78 in this one?
Yeah, and there are plenty of marquee matchups if you want them. Like you said, how many matchups did you post?
Oh, yes. Good. Thanks for reminding me of my plug. It's in my notes.
It's
114 matchups.
I was exhausted after I was done going through all these freaking matchups. I was like,
usually you throw 35 at me, and it's like, all right, I'll take a look at these and find the ones I like. And the list just kept going and going. Yeah, there are plenty of marquee matchups this week. Those are not ones I usually gear towards because a lot of those guys are very close in skill level, and it's hard. I feel like a lot of those are priced pretty well, but yeah, Nesmith over Champ. It wouldn't be a weekend if I didn't bet on or against one of the Camerons, one of the many Camerons on tour. Nesmith, he missed cut last weekend. Tough Saturday. I think it was a 76. But it's a guy that's just, I think he's getting better with his irons, just keeps improving. I like him. It's funny. My buddy I talked golf with was really pumping him up, and then he hit like a triple on Saturday or something, or Friday rather, I guess. You would have to do that on Friday if you want to miss the cut. But 3 top 20s in a row before that, and some great tee to green numbers. And like we just said, putting should come easier this week. It's not going to drag down some of these guys that struggled at the last 2 weeks. There were some serious struggles. You watch the TV broadcast, you're going to see, Bryson rolling it and Spieth just pulling stuff out of his ass, getting super lucky with some long stuff. But you didn't see some of these other guys just struggling on some of these greens, losing a lot of strokes. So, and then, the case against Champ, he just isn't playing well. He's a guy that he has a couple PGA level wins, but this was, a few years ago. I think probably 18 maybe was his last one. And I looked, I'm like, oh man, he's missed 4 out of the last 6 cuts. And then I looked at the ones he made the cuts, and it was WGC in the Tournament of Champions. And those are non-cut events. So essentially, if there was a cut to be missed, he missed it this year. And really, he's been decent off the tee, which will help here. But the rest of his game has been letting him down. So happy to take Nesmith at what, 1.78?
1.78 or minus 128 for the US audience out there. JD, right, that was towards the middle of the field / bottom of the field, but we're going to the top of the market right now with our next selection. You like DJ to beat Rahm, and a bit of context here. In the outrights, DJ is 14.0 and Rahm's 18.0, but hey, who's the dog in this one? DJ 2.06.
And that's something Andy and I, we always talk about it. They're not the only thing that's correlated between the outrights and the head-to-heads are who they match up against, not the numbers by any means. 2 separate markets. And in this market, I don't understand how this is not. I mean, I make this basically a pure coin flip, right? 50-50 on both sides, and we're going to grab 2.06. I'm going to have to take that percentage edge every single time. You look at a guy, Dustin Johnson, last week, at concession, which was 2 weeks ago, lost 10 strokes putting, which is like almost impossible. I don't know how that only can happen at WGC, because if you lose anywhere near that in the first few days, you're just out of the tournament, right? So a pretty impressive putting performance, all things told, and he can do that. But here's the thing: this is a guy who has never really putted great on Bermuda, but he does like those bent and that pull putting surface, which is kind of the combo that we're going to see here, right? So when we go to Rahm, has definitely improved with his irons over last year. I'm actually really impressed with him, and this is no slight to him. If he wins this golf tournament, I wouldn't be remotely surprised. I just think that when we look at DJ, the number 1 player in the world, we've seen these guys go head-to-head before, right? And, to me, they're just similarly skilled players. I do like DJ's upside a little bit. I think his floor might be a hair lower, but ultimately, whenever you're going to get the number 1 player in the world who is just absolutely killing it in every single golf tournament at a plus price, I'm gonna go ahead and just take that percentage. And again, I just make this a pick 'em, and we're getting a little edge there. So,
2.06 plus 106 in US odds. I like the angle, very much like it. I do understand the non-correlation with the outright market. It does make sense, but with DJ there, I like that one. Mr. Molitor, Tringale to beat Leishman. Was it one of you guys backed Tringale? Was it you, Andy, last week? He was
damn
to beat
right.
Taylor Gooch. Yeah, you're damn right. You took it. So you like him again this week, and he's a short enough price at 1.62 or minus 161. But in our WhatsApp group prior to recording, you said big favorite, don't care, should be 1.4. So you've got an edge.
No, and this is not a pick 'em. This is a big, massive favorite, and it was one where I looked at it and I make my numbers and I decide where I think the prices should be, and it was still an edge. And obviously, some of the betting I do, I will be selling strokes on stuff like this, but even just the straight money line, or if you want to flat bet this at 1.6, like I said, I make it on the other side of 1.5. I think this should be a big one. I can't run my numbers any which way and not love Tringale. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Well, actually, you know what? He won last week. So he made me money last week. I've backed him in the past. I backed him earlier in the year. He is a guy I like quite a bit. And then Leishman, he's just quietly been on the wrong side of the strokes gained battle since the restart. The kind of if you look at his general form, he kind of peaked before we had the time off for COVID, and it's been a little bit of a downward trend since then. He has comported himself well this year, but mostly gaining with the putter, and I guess that'll be kind of a theme here as we are sitting on this March players. It's like I'm not afraid to go after a guy that. He's been gaining a lot on the greens on the field because the field's kind of been struggling. And with Leishman, he's losing strokes on the field, off the tee, and with his irons the past 2 weeks. Just if he's going to do that and make it up on these sketchy greens the last couple weeks, I'm fine going against him here. Tringale's made 8 straight cuts. He sprinkled a couple of top 10s in. And, like I did mention last week, Tringale was a little rough with his irons last week and some tough wind. I'm not sure what the weather looks like. Maybe James can speak to that. I haven't checked super hard. I mean, we could technically, I guess we'd call it a Florida course, which you can get some win, but I doubt we'll see what we saw last week. But yeah, like I mentioned last week, he was a guy that was ranking in the top 10 and strokes gains up on approach. And it was a little down at Bay Hill, but he still got it done and made some money for us last week.
Yeah, I like the angle, and I learned from Rob Mazzola in our NFL podcast this season, if you have that much of an edge, just bet the number and don't worry about the fact that it is a short price. I think people sometimes just get a bit too bogged down in that. JD, back to you. Harris English, Sam Burns. Burns, like we said at the top, burnt us last week. We got a push. We didn't lose money on the guy. Should have won that crappy matchbook that it was, especially against Billy Horschel. But you like him here in this one, and he's a big price here. He's a 2.18 currently against Harris English in this. Make the case for the LSU grad.
Yeah, and again, another one where I'm looking at. I make this pretty much even money. We're getting a little bit of an edge here, so it's a no-brainer for me. Look, here's the thing. When I don't want to be too quick to estimate some of these guys with their 1 week performance, a small sample size. We saw last week English did revert back to the form that we saw pre-COVID, right? But we haven't seen that form in a long time from him. It's a guy that I've faded a lot, and he gained strokes, tee to green, a lot of strokes putting, which he has been doing. He's not a great putter generally, so he has to gain strokes, tee to green, amongst the ball striking and the chipping numbers there. And again, Sam Burns last week did not have a great week. It lost less than a stroke across the board. So it wasn't like he was that far off. And when we consider the meltdown that he had towards down the stretch there, we know where those lost strokes came from. He was right on that cut number going into Friday afternoon before he basically aborted the par 5 there. But, again, a situation here where I like Sam Burns just to do what he's been doing since the start of the year, and that is strike the ball very solidly and putt very solidly. And I like English to do what he's done since the start of the year, which is nothing good. So other than the Tournament of Champions win, after that, we haven't seen anything from him form-wise in months. So I'm just going to go back to I'm just not going to take a 4-round, or in Burns' case, a 2-round sample, and think that is the holding here. So I would have made Burns a favorite pick him last week. My numbers haven't changed that much on either of these guys, so I'm going to go ahead and take the plus money on that guy.
Yeah, like the angle very much, and hopefully he'll get the job done this week. If you're watching us now live, I do see a couple of comments come in, but we're just going to rattle through these matchups. We'll do the comments and questions towards the end. Like we said, 114 matchups at Matchbook. So I didn't really feel the need to ask each guy to give 50, 60 each. So please let us know if you have any thoughts on your ones. Okay, next one. Shez, Reavie, JT, Poston, Andy. This is your one, and I think you like Shez in this one.
Yeah, Shez. I am sure he has a different line. I should look that up one of these days. I'm sure that's not his real name, but yeah, this was a weird price to me. I don't know if this was maybe a course history price, because Reavie hasn't really played well here. But again, as we mentioned off the top, you can't really look back at the deep history, and even the past 4 years, I guess. He missed the cut 2 out of the past 4 times he played it. His best finish was top 30, but again, we're kind of wiping a lot of that and just saying, well, we're back on a different kind of course if they're going to play this in March. So, and again, if they are pricing it according to that, JT here, not JD, JT, not counting last year, he really only played this course once 2 years ago, and he did get a top 22, it looks like. So I guess maybe that's a reason why this is close. I don't have this nearly as close as your Matchbook has it. So Reavie, just a much better iron player of late, gaining nearly a full stroke per round against the field, and Poston's on the other side of that coin. So in this one, it's probably just another putter fade for me, where if I have a guy whose irons are playing that much better than his opponent, and you're seeing maybe the pricing is a little closer because one has gained a lot more strokes putting, I'm happy to take a short price here. So Reavie was, we'll do an American one. Minus 110, 1.909. Yeah. And look at that. In the chat, it even says William Chesney Reavie.
Oh, wow.
Thank you. Appreciate that more, Mario. Thank you so much for clearing that up. Yeah, but minus 110, 1.91 at Matchbook at the time we're recording. Yeah. Okay.
We have Reavie fans out there.
There you go. Just someone everywhere. So we're gonna do 2 matchups here for Will Zalatoris. Yeah. James, first one is Willie Z. There you go. First one you want to attack here, and obviously we're favoring him in this one actually, is against Adam Scott, the Australian. What's the angle here? He's currently just under 1.85 Zalatoris.
Yeah, so Willie Z is a guy who Again, I think I spoke of this the very first podcast. I lost a lot of money on that guy, and I think at the PGA, and it wasn't fun. But you have to be able to switch quickly, and I have because I've been backing him left and right since. The guy is solid as a ball striker as they come on tour, even as a PGA Tour rookie. I mean, we're looking at 10th at the Arnold Palmer, 22nd in Mexico, 15th at the Genesis, 17th at the Waste, 7th at the Farmers. Basically, a top 20 machine when you look at 5 out of his last 6 tournaments. Not a great putter. You'll find me gravitating towards poor putters because I just feel like it's so random, especially on a TBC course like this week where, we look at, Harding Park, Colin Morikawa, not a great putter, was able to navigate those greens relatively easily. Same kind of situation here with Willie Z. His ball striking, absolutely amazing. Kind of like the ball striking we used to see from Adam Scott that we just simply haven't since COVID. Pre-COVID, won a Genesis, was a guy I was on at the Masters because, whenever he can get that putter going, he can do whatever he wants, and that's for the history of his career. He's putting really well. He hasn't been able to find the club face since COVID came back. I'm not really sure what happened there. He lost his swing to a certain extent, so I'm just going to wait and find out where he is. You can't lose 5.2 strokes on approach, off the tee, and 2 strokes on approach in Mexico, and be a guy who should be anywhere near priced where Willie Z is right now, considering his form. So I'm going to fade Scott. I'm ready. I'll be ready to get back on Scott as soon as we see something from him because he is putting excellently, but I need to see some ball striking from Scott before I stop fading him.
Lost my audio.
We lost connection with
We'll pick this back up.
Yeah, we're going to play in these AirPods. You pay a lot of money. I left the screen up here, James, the price on screen. I want to talk about this for a second, just for maybe some of our viewers who are unused to the exchange. If you can see right now, Zalatoris here, you can get £850 sterling, just under 1.85. But on the top of here, you can see someone like Scott here because there's 721 here in the pink. So that means somebody wants to get that amount on Scott at a bigger price of 2.18. Would that worry you in any way that there's because believe me, there are some sharp golf bettors at Matchbook. I'm obviously going to talk them up some bit, but would it bother you in any way?
So I will say this: a lot of the, a lot of models that I definitely trust, and I'm not going to say anything, to disparage any of them. Long-term form is very indicative of what's going to happen short-term here, right? So we're looking at a guy in Adam Scott who, whenever he has had a good putter, he's going to be a very solid player. His long-term form is as good as anyone, considering what he did, pre-COVID, right? So I would say that's driving a lot of that price, and we don't have a lot of that on Zalatoris, especially on the course he's never seen before, right? So, Look. Does it worry me? No. I go against the sharps all the time. I'm pretty successful with my head-to-head bets, so not really worried about it. But I can see where that would be the case, just based upon what I know about the guys who are very sharp and they're successful. Like I would not. I'm not sitting here trying to. I don't want to go heads up on them on anything. But long-term form does take a lot into account. And I just in this situation particularly, I just don't see it from Scott.
And do you want to jump back in there or not?
Yeah, and like you said, that sort of stuff doesn't worry me because I don't know how to read the Matchbook stuff.
Okay, yeah.
Like the red part. Like after you explained it to me, I'm like, oh, now I'm getting it. I know I understand the blue side. The red side is all new. So somebody wants you to lay Scott at that price.
Exactly.
Okay.
So basically, the beauty of the exchange here is that you can play the bookie. You can start setting the price in. Like a guy you've had on the Deep Dive podcast, Brad Allen, would be a very good proponent. He loves playing tournament matchups, and if he wants a bigger price than Scott, he's going to put in his offer. So you can set your odds. Now you may get matched, you may not get matched, but that's kind of the beauty of it. If I'm just going to use Brad for an example, I'm not saying that's Brad, by the way, but just for example, if closer to the time you're not getting matched, you can say, okay, I'm going to bring my price down. I'm going to bring it back down to 2.1. I probably will get matched on Scott at that side, rather than 2.18. So that is the beauty of the exchange. You can set your own odds, and sometimes you get matched, sometimes you don't. That's the beauty of it.
Come to America, please, Matchbook, please.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind.
Anytime.
Working on it.
If you truly believe your edge, you'd match him. I'll take the better price.
Absolutely,
I want that.
That is the beauty, and that's the beauty. You're betting against guys like that. Stay with Will Zalatoris. I'm probably getting his name wrong, but I'm definitely going to get Christian Bezuidenhout's name right. Such is my knowledge of the Afrikaans language in South Africa. But Zalatoris here is just under 1.82, and Bezuidenhout is 2.06. And you're staying here with Willie Z, Andy.
Yeah, just echoing all the sentiment that James laid on Zalatoris, and I was kind of in the same boat. I didn't lay a drone strike bet against him last year and just take it in the shorts. I mean that was a rough week for you, and you bounced right back. I've never been worried about you, but like I guess I was just as surprised that week went that way. Like, oh man, this guy might be legit. And just like JD said, like you got to be able to adjust on the fly. I mean, there's young guys that come up all the time. We have a great crop of young golfers right now. It's a lot of fun. And Zalatoris surely is one of those. And then, he hasn't, just echoing again everything that James said, he hasn't missed a cut here since like the stupid Mississippi tournament. I can't think of what that one's called, the Jackson one, the chicken farm tournament, whatever it's called. So, and he snuck 6 top 20s in there as well. And just his putting has kind of been holding him back a little. It's kind of, you made the comparison to Morikawa. It's like, oh, there's a guy that if he could get the putter together, like he could definitely win a tournament. And then you see at Harding Park, it's like, oh man, he made a few putts. He's going to take this shit. So he, against man, I'm just going to call him Bezuidenhout. You really nailed it. Yeah. Bezuidenhout is off a nice finish at the Arnold Palmer. But if you look at his total strokes gained, 2/3 of them came on the green. Like I think he gained 9 maybe, and it was about 6 were on the dance floor. So that again, that's not something that I think is going to be sustainable. I think it's going to be balanced out quite a bit by this tournament here. And Zalatoris has been much better about finding the greens. I think that's going to be more key than making the putts. I think the putts kind of even themselves out on if you can find the fairway, find the green. So greens and regulation numbers have been a lot better. He's gaining about a full green in regulation better than Bezuidenhout.
You're getting there. You even had the little kind of Dutch/Afrikaans.
I did throw it in there. So.
You did.
I like this one. This is a 1.8 kind of price. 1.81.
1.81. Currently at match. Sorry, 1.82 minus 122 at Matchbook currently. JD, you opposed Billy Horschel last week. You should have got up, but you're going to oppose him again this week, and I think. I don't want to spoil it here or anything, but I think you're very strong on this one. Horschel is playing Abraham Ancer in this matchup. Horschel is 1.92 and Ancer is 2.0, even money up plus 100. Yeah.
And that is one of the bad things is about these head-to-head matches is your other horse has to come through. Even when you get the one guy exactly right, your other guy has to be right too. So when we spoke last week about Horschel, I said I don't think he's going to drive the golf ball as well as he has. I don't think he's going to putt the golf ball as well as he has. He has a 2-week situation where it's drawing his market price up, and I just don't believe it. Well, he lost strokes off the tee and he lost strokes putting. Didn't quite get the W, but here we're going with a guy in Abraham Ancer who will absolutely gain strokes on approach this week. And if we talk about a soft golf course where, a lot of guys are going to be in the same spot because the balls aren't going to be running out into the fairways. And also a guy who doesn't putt great, but look, again, we're on POA greens that are not very undulated. It's a perfect spot to back a guy who's not a very good putter. We look at Ancer. He has an 18th at the WGC Mexico, a 5th at the American Express. Again, we'll most likely lose some strokes putting, but we don't have to worry about that this week because he's going to strike the ball so well that he's going to be able to make this cut. I'm not so worried about his putter. And we're just going to go right back to the handicap we had last week from Billy Horschel. Off the tee wasn't real when he got second. His putting wasn't real when he got second. He's going to go ahead and regress back to his previous form and Ancer. I mean, this is a number that's not even close, by the way. It's not close. Like this is like wrong guy favored by a lot. So.
This was me saying like, I needed to get my matchups in before James because this would have been mine. Hard agree.
I didn't put best bet in the chat to make sure you didn't steal from me.
Why do I get the sense this is going to be hard one to find elsewhere outside the Matchbook and maybe one or two other places?
Not around, I'll tell you that right now. I've looked high and dry.
Maybe it will come good at some stage. Andy, back to you. Harold Varner to beat Woodland. Do you like in this one? What do you like here?
Yeah, this was a rough one, and we just start looking at names. It's like, man, Varner is a favorite here. I think some people probably gravitate the other way, but man, it's been a long, you feel like, oh man, it's been a long year. It's been a long time. It's been a long time since the 19 US Open. It's been a long stretch. And just number wise, this one actually surprised me that it popped out a little at me. So Varner's a guy we back constantly as first round leader. He's a solid Thursday guy, but he's a good golfer. He quietly pretty much he almost had a top 20 this week. He played pretty well. He was just kind of steady Eddie. And I think that's what we're going to see from him here. And maybe, again, not being let down so much by the putter. He's been better about finding the greens. He's been better about finding the fairways, and his short game is pretty comparable to Woodland. It's just one of those things where Woodland's been wilting a little of late. He had a Sunday 78 at Concession, 2 missed cuts before that, and then a Saturday 77 at Torrey. That just kind of takes you out of contention when you weren't really all that high up in the leaderboard to begin with. So, and again, I said we can't really use course history because it was 2018, but Varner has top 10 here. It was, I believe that was before they made the changes, but he has played well here in the past. And yeah, he's just quietly playing well when he does. So looking for this is the kind of matchup that probably goes the full weekend, and I sweat, but the numbers, I'm just going to have to trust him here. And Varner at 1.84-ish.
Yeah, 1.84 minus 119. James, you started with DJ. And you're going to finish with him, so bookend him. But you're going to take him on because I think he's like playing like 5 or 6 people in our matchups. But you're taking him on with Rory McIlroy in this one. He's a bit shorter, obviously, than the price with Rahm, so he's just under 1.79. Rory at 2.11. But again, I'm presuming this is more of a fade in Rory as much as a backing on DJ.
Yeah, you're right. DJ is kind of taking on all comers at the Matchbook head market.
Yeah, everyone.
He's got like 6 or 7 of them up there, which is fine because number one play in the world. I'm not sure he's being priced like that this week in a lot of these matchups. Yeah. This is another example here. When I look at Rory, whenever guys are like, I have a 2-way miss. My golf swing is not right. I am struggling with it right now. I don't like to hear that from my guys, right? Like that's just not something that I'm interested in hearing from a guy, especially to Rory standards. And that's exactly what he said this morning. He's masking a lot of that by putting well, which is not really what his strong suit is, and it's never really been. Usually when he putts like this, he's just winning things, right? But when Rory's going to gain 0.2 off the tee, 2.7, 0.9 in his last 3 starts, that's just not going to get it done. And also, his irons, and especially more importantly, his wedges, which he will have a lot of this week because he's going to be able to find the fairway with that driver. I would imagine his wedges are not, his approach game is just off right now. The thing about Rory is he's so good. Even with that, he can finish top 10. He can finish top 20. But again, when we look at where Dustin Johnson's game is, this is not a huge edge here. This is a lot more of a fade of Rory than what my numbers would suggest to do. But I'm just saying, look, I'm taking a little bit of a subjective route with this, and I just don't see him as a guy who's all mentally there. Just had a kid, recently married. It just seems like there's a lot going on. Whereas we got Dustin Johnson, coming off a weird putting performance like we spoke of earlier, but is clear and cut the best player in the world. So 50. Right around 56% right now. I make it 58, so it's not a huge edge. But at the same time, I think it's something we can exploit.
It's not a huge edge, but it's an edge.
Yeah,
and I don't think it'll be your biggest bet of the week, but it's one to be playing anyway. Just before we get to comments, guys, I just want a quick reminder of that offer, the 0% commission. More details of that can be found at matchbook.com/promo/insights, as you can see on the screen. If you don't want to go there and you're just signing up at matchbook.com, just use the promo code insights, and then you will get 0%. If you don't use it, you won't get it. A couple of comments. Let's bring them in here. Pickles Rick's Pick. I love that name. He was called something else before on Twitter. Is there value on JT in the head-to-head versus big dogs like DJ or Rory? And obviously, JD, you backed him the outright, but are you going to take him in a couple of these matchups as well?
So again, this is kind of the question we always have between outrights and head-to-heads, right? So, man, that driver JT has, it could go absolutely south. I mean, he lost 5.4 strokes on approach the last time out at Concession. We haven't seen him hit it in the fairway. So this is my case against him this week, and maybe why he's priced where he is. The problem is I know that what his upside is winning this golf tournament going away, considering what his iron play can do and how he has putted the golf ball. So in a full tournament head-to-head, I'm not as excited to get behind him just because I know what that floor is. If that driver gets squirrely, especially on a golf course like this where there's a lot of trouble, he's just going to miss the cut. I can just say that. But again, if he can get it in play, he'll just win the golf tournament. I like that a lot more for the outrights than I do for the head-to-heads, especially with those two guys. I mean, their floors are so high right now that I'm just not really interested in picking on either of those two with JT specifically.
Another one in here from Brent. Neiman minus 105 versus Casey. Any thoughts on this, guys? We can rattle through if you don't. Any thoughts?
Oh, Neiman is a guy I like quite a bit. He's always popping up higher, but God, I don't know where I'd put Casey. If you made me play it, I'd take Neiman, but that price is pretty fair.
Yeah, I'd probably be on opposite. I'd probably be on Casey just because, I mean, his ball striking is so insane that he's a top 25 machine. I mean, he's 10th at the Arnold, 5th at AT&T, 8th at the Amex since last time out. He's not going to win this golf tournament. I like Neiman in the outright market better, but in the head-to-head, I'm going to go ahead and I don't know. I mean, it's no bad. It's about right.
Let's take one more before we get to best bets, guys, from Austin Hansen. Keegan Bradley over Cam Davis, top 10 last week and top 10 here in 2018. Any thoughts on this one? You're shaking your head, JD.
There's an what's the expression about Keegan?
It's full. Going full Keegan is a thing. So I mean, whether or not whenever I see him, I go right by him again because you'll look at his stats. I mean, absolutely striking, amazing. I mean, he hasn't lost strokes on approach since Obama was in office. To be honest, like his guy is like absolutely insane with his irons. A crazy bad putter, but kind of streaky, clearly, because he has a bunch of wins, including a major. I don't bet Keegan. I can't because if you do and you follow him, you will either stop betting golf. You might, say some things to your significant other you don't want to. Like, there's a lot of things that can happen with your emotions if you bet Keegan. So I just don't do it. I don't necessarily think it's a bad play, but it's just not a guy that I can get behind.
Yeah, okay. Just not worth it. Just leave it. Just leave it. Yeah. There's 114 matchups that match, but there's probably one other you can find. Just before we get to best bets, let's take a look at the quads here. The Molitor 5-timer this week. We've always got the 5th major and 5 times. Andy, it pays 13.6 plus 1,260. So yeah, not a bad price. Yeah.
Mine cashed last week. Does that work? Do you push?
Yeah, I think it pushed.
I think we got a reduced win.
Yeah, you got a reduced win. I think. Yeah. So yeah, basically when there's a push, you get the other price is like a non-runner essentially. Basically, James, I had to change yours. I couldn't give you 5. You had 5 picks, but I gave you 4 because you've got DJ in 2 of them. So it's a bit of a related bet thing going on there. So yeah, I don't think you get paid or that. So I picked Rahm for you in this one. So DJ to beat Rahm, Burns to beat English, Zalatoris to beat Scott, and Ancer to beat Horschel. Pays 12.8 plus 1180 at matchbook.com. Right, best bets. JD, I think you went last week.
I definitely went first last week.
Yes. Mr. Molitor, you're tee up. Where you go? You're teeing off here. Best bet.
Probably the Reavie price. Actually, you know what? It's going to be Zalatoris. He's my guy. Give me Zalatoris over Bezuidenhout, just so I can say the name one more time. Like he's the guy. We're gonna be riding him till the wheels fall off. This, as long as they make the prices where they're making them, they kind of disrespect. There's always that spot. It's like it's like when Morikawa won the big one. It's like, oh, now his prices suck. It's like it's what we're gonna end up with. And that's what you get with some of these younger golfers who don't have the name quite yet, coming off the other tours. So he's a guy I'm gonna be loved to be backing until he finally ends up with like a really good finish or a win, and then it's all gonna go away. So take advantage while we can.
Yeah, only 2 matchups for Zalatoris at Matchbook, and we're back in board. JD, your best bet. I think you already kind of gave the game away, but tell us anyhow.
Yeah, the Ancer price is wild. Like it's not remotely close by that number. So, again, I laid the case out for 2 weeks on why we're fading Billy, but we're going to go ahead and back my countryman, Mexico. Let's go, baby. It's just there. Just paying homage to he's a Jalisco guy too. So yeah, Ancer is my guy. That's a completely flip price. I expect him to ball strike his way to a victory there.
Speaking of Mexican, I'm just looking down here. You guys had 10 picks. 9 of these guys are American. Is there a small bit of a bias there, maybe? Is there a small bit?
Ask Andy. I don't know.
Right,
Ask Andy.
We did kind of do that last week. We faded some Europeans.
Yeah.
Good, Billy. I mean, we're all right. Billy.
You got the right audience here for fading Europeans, let me tell you. All right, guys, we're out of time. JD, Andy, pleasure as ever. We're back again next Tuesday. Enjoy Sawgrass. Only a couple more weeks to the Masters. Best of luck with your bets.